Hi. Just look at my sparkles. I just want you to look at my sparkles because I love them and I think they're so beautiful and fun and I think glitter is amazing. And now for the video. Okay, so I wanted to make this video for my sensitive, spiritual, intuitive people who feel like you feel your feelings. There's no hiding from it. There's no running away from it. You sense things that barely anyone around you senses, let alone anyone in your life ever in the history of your existence has also sensed. You're that kind of person. The patterns and the currents that you pick up on, you clock them. You're not even trying, but you can't ignore them. You're not wired that way. So this video is for you, and I want to share a story. I feel like I need to be careful with the details that I share here because I don't want people to attack me. I want to protect what needs to be protected, and frankly, I don't know what that is, but I need to get this message out, and I need to encourage other intuitives to listen to your, intuition. And I want to tell you this story so that you have like a reference point that you can use to take with you through into your life experiences. Okay, I think I'm going to share the story. So today I went to an event and there was nothing wrong with it. It was a nice event, and especially on the surface, it was pretty and everything. But I could not pin why I felt what I describe as demonic and violent energy. That was how my body responded to whatever I was feeling. And in the event, I got a headache, and I didn't think much of it, but I have a history of tracking my somatic symptoms like to a T, and tracking the relationship between my symptoms and then the supplements that I take to respond to those acute flare-ups. And I have a whole journey on healing holistically from chronic illness, basically, chronic symptoms. So anyway, I was here at this event. My head started to hurt. I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was just a lot of energy, or I registered that there was something off for me that I could sense in the environment, and my body was just like, I did feel uncomfortable and I couldn't pin it, and it was like really surprising and weird, and I just couldn't pin it. It really, really just like knocked me. And later that night, I went on a walk outside, and I had this anger and this frustration lingering. And mind you, anger comes from the solar plexus, which governs boundaries. And anger is a signal emotionally that something is crossing a boundary, okay? There's that. Fast forward, I'm home, I have my headache, I just filmed a channeling video in my puffy jacket. It's the one that is posted before this. What is it? It's 2 a.m. on the 14th of November 2025, so I think that I'll just post this, schedule it to come out later today. So yeah, I get home, I still have my headache, I film my video, have my headache, and I'm like a little pissed off about it because it's painful and uncomfortable. And also, not only that, but I realized I don't have the tolerance or the space or the energy to afford allowing my acute flare-up to turn into something worse. Because earlier this week, I had a skin flare-up because of some chemical and glyphosate exposures that turned into, other things. It snowballed because it was not handled on the spot acutely, therapeutically. It's like, I made this analogy earlier. If you're in a boat and the boat has a hole in it, you cannot afford to go on the internet and order duct tape and wait for it to ship to you in the mail. Your boat is going to be at the bottom of the ocean by then. What you have to do is use the resources at your disposal and plug that hole as best as you can and get to shore, or get to a dock, or get to a, like a rescue boat or something. And our health is the same way. Our health is the same. And a lot of us don't have the tools, or we have the tools, but we don't know how to use them. And we're actually encouraged and taught not to. We're encouraged to outsource our intuition. If you look into like the free birth movement, that is a huge example of how, an arena within the medicalized field where feminine wisdom is reclaiming itself, and women are choosing to give birth without all these tests and radiation and wires and intervention and everything. Because the medical institution has only existed for I don't know how long, but we've been perpetuating ourselves as a species for way fucking longer. And we live in a society and a culture that's severely removed from shamanic wisdom, the wisdom of the earth, and being in relationship with the plants around you, the medicine around you. Plants will literally grow outside of where you live because their spirit knows that you need them medicinally. There was a story that I heard one time. I was at this permaculture retreat center somewhere in Florida, and someone told me the story of how they had a guest camping in the fields, and within 3 days of her being there, I forget the plant it was, but there was like a weed that started growing there, and she developed some like respiratory infection or something, and the herb that popped up there was for respiratory health. And the earth, it speaks, and there's no way I can convince you of that, because if you can't hear, what you're gonna hear from me is crazy woo-woo, I'm out of my mind, I'm a psychopath, I'm a witch, I'm whatever. But no, I listen and I track. But not only that, I live it. I listen from within. So anyway, I get home and I realize I am not willing to wait for my practitioner to respond tomorrow morning in an email or in a few days to tell me what supplements I need to add or take or subtract in order to curb my flare-up, because I've had flare-ups that have rendered me disabled many, many times. And in fact, earlier this week, I was slightly disabled again. And what that means is I could not shower or wear clothes without agony, because my skin barrier became raw. However, the miracle in this is that it only took a week for it to heal. And now, I still have some leftover kind of agitated raw skin here, but my skin's pretty smooth. It wasn't like this. A few days ago, you would have seen like red, blotchy, discolored skin, but now it's smooth. It's just becoming smoother every day. And that's because my practitioner was able to test me for what I was exposed to and test, muscle test using kinesiology. Look it up if you don't know it, to test what supplements I needed. So anyway, I was here in my home. My entire life has been a training ground for intuitive capacity. And my intuition is very strong, and I have a very good relationship with it. And I first learned some kinesiology techniques when I was about 8 or 10 years old, and it was through a family therapist that my mom, had. and he would do kinesiology on me using different techniques. And then, later on in life, through more trainings and courses and workshops and experiences, I learned different kinesiology techniques and self-testing. And one of them is where you just press the tips of your thumb and pointer finger together and you make a loop. And the way that I tested, when I was having this headache and saying to myself, I'm going to test for what my body wants right now, and I'm going to listen and trust it and not bypass my intuition. Like if I felt a pause or a fear response that was too strong to walk past, I would listen to that too. I'm not saying go in blindly. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you my experience. So use your discernment and don't do what I'm doing. Do what your body tells you to do. Do what your intuition says to do. And I can never know that. I can never prescribe that. And I can never tell you how to, know for solid 100% certain that it's yours, because it's understanding and having a relationship with your intuition is knowing the signature of your intuition and tracking the patterns and recognizing what it is. Okay, so I have that relationship with myself, so I trust myself. And the way that I trust myself might look unfamiliar or foreign to someone who also has a good relationship with their intuition, but they have an entirely different blueprint, an entirely different modality of intuiting their place in the world. Okay, so what I did, this is a common kinesiology practice, but you can try it out for yourself. You can hold different supplements or foods, to your chest. I put the bottles in my pocket when I did this with the pills and the droppers and stuff, which basically are herbs, and in therapeutic doses for acute flare-ups. These specific ones, they're not going to hurt me. And I also have my, I'm prepared to handle any Herxheimer's reactions or, whatever. I got my resources and stuff, and I've taken therapeutic doses like 4 times as strong as what I was taking just now. So, for me, that was like safety, logic, anchoring, like this is good, this is safe. So anyway, I tested, and I found my doses, and I took some of them, and I'm gonna wait, see how I feel, and then if my body gives me the okay, then I'm gonna take the rest of them. Oh, look at that. Okay. I think 2 thumbs up is fireworks. We're gonna try it again. Yeah, 2 thumbs up is fireworks. Yeah, oh my gosh, and how uncanny that I opened up with the glitter and we get fireworks. Glitter. I just love glitter. Look how beautiful it is. It's just like space dust, cosmic, beautiful, light catching glitter, It's just great. It's just amazing. We're going to do one more. Okay. All right. So anyway, I sent an email to my practitioner and I told her pretty much what I just told you. I said, hey, blank, insert her name. I was experiencing an acute flare-up today. I got a headache. I went to this event and I, did this testing, and I would love your professional opinion. Is this safe? Do you have any advice for making sure it stays safe? Yada, yada. I was just like, she's my practitioner. She's the person who basically nursed me back to health when I was literally dying. Literally, I was dying. So yeah, I sent her that email, and when I was writing it, which brings me to the exact point that I want to deliver in this video, I realized, I said, oh my God. When I walked into that room and sat down, I felt the emotional energy, like something was off. The longer I sat there, the more that I started to feel uncomfortable in my skin. And I felt what my body interpreted as violence. I can't explain it more than that. That's what it was. And then so I get home, I'm bothered by the headache, and I do my muscle testing and I take my supplements and I begin to literally feel better. I feel the circulation come back in my head. I feel my headache instantly come down. My energetic field opens. I'm tracking all these subtle sensations that are live feedback from my biology saying, yes, this is supporting us. This is good. The firework didn't go off again. It's interesting. I guess you need to hold it there for like a couple seconds for it to register. Anyway, so I was getting the live feedback from my body, like, this is good, this is what my body asked for, it's confirmation, I trust it, I went with it, and I'm feeling good about this. And then I realized I need to make a YouTube video about this because there are people out there who are driving themselves crazy over the things that they feel, sense, see, smell, hear that aren't validated by the outside world. They have no frame of reference. There are people walking around who are sponges to information, psychic, energetic information, who have no framework for what the hell is going on. So that's why I wanted to tell you this story. I went into this random room. There was nothing apparently wrong with it. I had no problems with anyone. In fact, I made some nice connections. And, other than the weird energy and emotion and feeling, like, I enjoyed what I experienced. There were good layers to it. I appreciated it. But for no known reason, I felt violent energy. I felt violent and I could not explain it, but I felt like my body emotionally and energetically was bracing for an attack. Literally. And I am like jokingly want to say what my narcissistic abusers taught me was to actually validate my own feelings and to never ever deny my lived reality the way that they did. So I got really good at naming what I'm experiencing. And I name these things for other people and I share them so that other people can realize they can validate themselves too. And you can feel more empowered and connected with your experience, even if no one else is validating you. And that's, a gift of the light that I, pulled from narcissistic abuse. So I got good at acknowledging those things. So wherever I go in the world, I have no trouble and no hesitation naming if something feels off or something feels wrong. I clock it and I say it. I don't need to say it to anybody and I don't need to go announcing it, but it doesn't go over my head. I clock what I experience. And it all winds up making sense. And I was just like, I need to tell YouTube this story because there are other people who walk into rooms and feel things they can't explain. And there are other people who don't have the tools to kinesiology test themselves, to handle an acute flare-up. And there are people walking around who, just, again, don't have the frameworks to be empowered and reclaim their sovereignty around their health and their, psychic, emotional, energetic, physical boundaries. But these are all things that I've learned, and I'm not trying to gatekeep. I'm just sharing my lived experience, and I am validating those who are like me, who don't have the frameworks that I have. I have broken down, sobbing, crying out to God so many times in my life. Why am I lucky to have survived what I survived? Why did I learn about parasite cleansing and multi-stage detoxing and the whole triangulation of detox, drainage, kill? Why did I learn how to do that perfectly? And yet not perfectly, but why did I learn how to do that harmoniously, safely, and carefully when there are countless other people going on these cleanses and falling even more out of whack because they don't have the tools to test intuitively for how much they need of what supplement at what time. Why am I lucky? Why is it me? You know, in a way, it's a burden because I get triggered when I hear people talk about their, health situations, because I feel the hopelessness of being stuck in a system that doesn't have the tools or the language or the acknowledgement to meet you at the root of your illness, of your ailment. And I've had family, and I've seen people pass away from complex chronic symptoms and illnesses that I've also lived. But I healed them. And I learned how to have a relationship with them, with these tools that came from God, not some man-made, evidence-based, science-based system. What I'm teaching, what I'm showing, the stories that I'm telling are rooted in feminine wisdom, intuition. No tangible evidence needed. In fact, the most tangible evidence a person can have is proof that their inclinations and their knowing lines up with the truth after the download happens. Hope that made sense. In other words, the best proof you can get is when you learn to trust the unseen and you learn to track patterns enough that you can observe the truth and what is speaking on an invisible level. And once you put the pieces together, then it makes sense. Then it reinforces that those subtle energy patterns and emotions and things that you're picking up on came to you through your body, through your emotions, because you are yin or feminine or receptive enough to hold them. So if you feel burdened by things that you know and sense, if you feel like you know too much, you don't know too much. You just live in a system or in a world that hasn't given you the frameworks to channel your sensitivity, your gifts. There are literally probably like hundreds of thousands of us, millions of us. I don't know millions. I don't know what percentage of the population is highly, highly, highly sensitive and highly intuitive, but massive, massive numbers of us. There's plenty of us. Okay? And I'm here for you, and I'm here to also encourage us to speak up. Let's get loud, in at the right times, in the right places. And let's stand up together so that we can become a unified force, so that we can learn that we don't need to suffer and feel squashed and squandered. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just wanted to come out, by the way or the lack of, mentorship and guidance and validation that the outside world, has given us for our gifts and for our sensitivities. Okay, so in short, my story goes like this. Once upon a time, I walked into a room and I felt demonic attack energy, and I couldn't explain why, and I even judged my own labeling of that quality because it sounds really intense and it's not something that is very easy to relate to or talk about or very colloquially used. People on the streets are not typically casually having conversations about how the energy in this place felt like a demonic attack. People don't talk about that stuff. It's weird to talk about that stuff, but that is how I felt. Later in the day, I am working through my acute flare-up, testing for what I need, and I put 2 and 2 together that flare-up was caused by some exposure in that room. There could have been pathogens. There could have been RNA shedding. There could have been spike proteins, I think. There could have been some airborne pathogen. There could have been mycotoxin. There could have been something. And, you know, this is the last thing I'll say. It's a side note. And I think I haven't studied like the history of this or anything, but it's intuitive. A lot of like witchy types of people, use salt for like energetic purification. Well, what the fuck does that mean? Like, how can you quantify that through your experience? What is your experience of salt actually purifying your energy? Like, can you explain what that means? A lot of people don't have language for that. But when I think about it, I think salt, I think how people like sprinkle salt around their houses as like a protection. And then I think about how meat is preserved in salt. Why? Because salt is like inhospitable for a lot of pathogens. Salt is like neutralizing. Salt is purifying. Salt does absorb toxins. You know what I mean? So it's like, of course, people associate it with, protection energy. But it's really not that woo-woo. It's just that people forgot the innate wisdom in earth elementals and salt and plants. Like, in like spiritual communities where people do like witchy stuff, witchcraft or whatever, it's like on the surface it seems like it's some separate thing, like spirituality is some separate thing from like medicine and health, but like it's not. It's just that we live in such a hyper over masculinized, like patriarchal structured world where rules and structures and systems and frameworks and evidence and measurements and science is like what the majority of the population is fed to believe. And don't get me wrong, it has its value. I love men, I love masculinity, all in harmony, all in balance. But when science leaves no room for feminine-led intuitive wisdom to shine, to be acknowledged, to be validated, to be honored, to be revered, then there's something majorly fucked up there. And that's part of my role here, is to re-imbibe this world with feminine wisdom and to encourage my intuitive people. You could be a man or a woman, and you have intuition. In fact, I exchanged a reading with a man recently, and literally the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Did you lose someone in a plane crash?" And yeah, I lost my dad in a plane crash when I was young, and he was blown away, and I was blown away too. I was like, good on ya, that was a really good hit. He died when I was an infant, so I don't have, I wasn't close to him, and I'm comfortable talking about that and whatnot. But my point is that this is not about men versus women. This is about yin and yang, receptivity and penetration, rigid structures and frameworks versus flow and improvisation, and intuition has actually been societally oppressed in men too. I'm just like inner moment of silence for that, because it is absolutely heartbreaking. And I want to encourage my beautiful men as well. You are important. Use your voice, please. Please, please, please use your beautiful God-given voice. Please, please, please acknowledge your beautiful God-given feelings and your intuition and your instincts. Even if no one is around to validate them, I'm going to validate them. And I'm going to remind you that any sensation, any experience, any passing thing that comes through you is real, because you experience it, even if you don't have the language or the frameworks to even understand or hold it. which is something that you can grow through somatic awareness. I mean, that's what I like to teach and preach and share. But anyway, my overall message from this video is trust your intuition. It's not lying. You don't need people to validate you. You don't need proof, because it's in your lived experience already, and that's enough.